Okay, I want you to imagine a place on Earth, a chunk of land bigger than some cities, that no country actually wants to claim. I know, it sounds impossible in a world where every square inch is mapped and owned, but this place is very, very real. Today, we're diving into the bizarre story of Bir Tawil, the land that nobody wants. So, our story doesn't start with politicians or generals. Nope. It starts with a dad from Virginia named Jeremiah Heaton. His 6-year-old daughter, Emily, had a pretty simple wish. She wanted to be a real princess. Now, most of us would probably just buy a costume. Heaton, well, he decided to go find her an actual kingdom. And believe it or not, he actually did it. After months of digging around online, he flew thousands of miles, drove for 14 hours through an empty desert, and on his daughter's 7th birthday, he planted a flag his family had designed on a rocky hill. Just like that, he declared it the sovereign Kingdom of North Sudan. Now, this whole thing raises a pretty massive question, right? Where on earth can you just show up, plant a flag, and claim a country for your kid? Well, the answer is hiding in this tiny, forgotten corner of Africa. Welcome to Bir Tawil. It's an 800-square-mile trapezoid of sand and rock, basically wedged right between Egypt and Sudan. There are no roads, no people living there permanently, and pretty much no resources we're talking about. It is, for sure, one of the most desolate places on the entire planet. But here's the real kicker, the central paradox of this whole story. It's not unclaimed just because it's in the middle of nowhere. Both of its huge neighbors, Egypt and Sudan, actively, and I mean actively, refuse to claim it. This makes Bir Tawil one of the last pieces of what's called Terra Nullius, or nobody's land on Earth. And to understand why, we've got to look right next door. You see, right next to the totally worthless Bir Tawil is the much larger and way more valuable 𝗖𝗆𝗆𝗏 Triangle. This place has a coastline on the Red Sea, and it's claimed fiercely by both Egypt and Sudan. And the crazy part is, the fight over 𝗖𝗆𝗆𝗏 is the exact reason Bir Tawil gets left in the dust. To really get why claiming one of these territories means giving up the other, we have to rewind the clock. We're going back to the colonial era, when British mapmakers drew some, let's say, very confusing lines in the sand. So here's what happened. Back in 1899, Great Britain drew a really simple, straight border between Egypt and Sudan, right along the 22nd parallel. Easy enough. But just 3 years later, in 1902, they redrew it. This time, it was a squiggly administrative line that was supposed to make more sense for the local tribes living there. Fast forward to 1956, Sudan gets its independence. And suddenly, these two completely contradictory maps become the foundation for a permanent argument. And this whole situation created this incredible geopolitical trap, a total catch-22. It's a stalemate that's all about which country gets the real prize here, the 𝗖𝗆𝗆𝗏 Triangle. Okay, so here's how this bizarre standoff works. Egypt says the original 1899 straight-line border is the real one. Why? Because that map gives them the valuable 𝗖𝗆𝗆𝗏 Triangle, but it places Bir Tawil inside Sudan. Meanwhile, Sudan argues for the later, squiggly 1902 border. And why do they want that one? You guessed it, because that map also gives them the 𝗖𝗆𝗆𝗏 Triangle, while handing Bir Tawil over to Egypt. Do you see the problem? This is the absolute key. For either country to claim the worthless desert of Bir Tawil, they would have to legally accept the map that gives the much more valuable 𝗖𝗆𝗆𝗏 Triangle to their rival, and neither side is ever going to make that trade. So Bir Tawil just sits there, stuck in this permanent state of geopolitical limbo. This bizarre status is what has led so many people, like Jeremiah Heaton, to call Bir Tawil Terra Nullius. It's a Latin term for nobody's land. And, it's a concept with a really long and pretty complicated history. So, in international law, Terra Nullius means territory that can be claimed just by showing up and occupying it because no other state owns it. But historically, this very idea was used by European powers to justify colonial expansion into lands they called uncultivated or unsettled, often completely ignoring the people who already live there. And that really brings us to the most important question here. Is this land truly a blank slate? Is it just waiting for an American dad to come plant a flag? Or is the story, a little more complex than that? Well, according to geographers like Alistair Bonnet, the whole idea that Bir Tawil is just up for grabs totally ignores a deep history of human activity that goes back way before any of these modern borders were ever drawn. The land isn't empty, it's just empty of permanent houses and towns. You see, far from being empty, this land was a known resource. That 1902 border was created for a reason, because the 𝗏𝗍𝗶𝗿 tribe, who had ties to Egypt, used this very area for grazing their animals. Even the name, Bir Tawil, literally means tall well, which points to a vital water source that local people knew about for generations. So it wasn't unclaimed, it was just used in a different way. So what's the big takeaway from all this? Bir Tawil isn't just some funny mistake on a map. It's a really powerful symbol. It shows us how these artificial borders, drawn for colonial convenience, can create totally absurd realities on the ground. Realities that are completely disconnected from the human history of a place. And it leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. The story of this one unwanted piece of desert really forces us to question the whole idea of borders themselves. It makes you wonder about all the hidden histories and forgotten people who are caught between the lines we draw all over the world.